Well, I think today's figures show actually that our economy is clearly getting back on track, in particular if you look at the numbers for March. But crucially, they show that our plan for jobs is working. And I think that's the important thing that I take away from today's figures. Look, of course, many households and families are still facing tough times, and that's why our support is continuing.
Restrictions will start to ease further on Monday, be able to come inside places like this for a drink, and further on June the 21st. But you'll know the hospitality industry particularly wants more certainty. If restrictions don't entirely go, will some economic support remain?
Well, we've provided considerable support to the hospitality industry through this crisis, and that support continues, and it continues well beyond the end of the roadmap, and the business we're in today is a great example of that, where they've been able to furlough staff but are now brilliantly brought them back to work. They're also taking on new employees, a Kickstarter, which is fantastic, and they've benefited from discretionary cash grants, and other hospitality businesses have benefited from the VAT cut or indeed business rates holidays. So, I know it's a tough time for the hospitality industry, but the crucial thing is we're making progress on the roadmap. Next week will be a big week, and I want to bring as many of those furloughed workers back to work, and that's what we're seeing in today's figures. Our plan for jobs is working.
But if social distancing in any form or any restrictions remain and 100% capacity can't be reached, that's the difference between being viable and not. So will you leave some support if you don't remove all the restrictions you've placed on businesses?
Well, I think I'd say two things. The Prime Minister's said that we're in good shape to continue making progress on the roadmap, so I think that should fill people with some confidence, some optimism about the future. But also, our support continues beyond the end of the roadmap, whether it's business rates reductions or VAT cuts or furlough, all those things continue well beyond the end of the roadmap, so that support is in place.
Last summer you stimulated spending, Eat Out to help out. Are you planning anything similar, or are you just going to trust consumers to get out there and spend the money they've saved?
So I think as a result of the actions that we've taken over the past year, we've managed to protect a lot of household incomes, and you see that in the recent economic figures, and I think that bodes well for the rest of the year. Our plan is working. Consumers have built up savings. Obviously that's not evenly distributed, and what we now know, which we didn't know a year ago, that actually as things open up, people do want to get out and go back to doing the things that they used to do, and I think we will see that in the coming weeks and months, as we are already seeing it in today's figures, which show that our plan is working.
Can they trust, though, that you're not going to lock down the economy again? Can they trust to spend those savings with the risk that you might close things down again?
Well, I think people can see with the success of the vaccine rollout, and with as the Prime Minister explained earlier this week as well, we are meeting all the tests for progress on the roadmap, and people are doing a fantastic job of following all the rules, and that's enabled us to bit by bit reopen our economy, reduce the restrictions, people go back to doing the things that they love doing. I think that's enormously positive, and that's why we're seeing, whether it's consumer confidence, which has returned to pre-crisis levels, business confidence, there's an enormous amount of optimism about the future, and I take a lot of heart from that, and it makes me think that the plan we put in place a year ago is working.
Should people go back to the office, and if so, when?
I said, obviously, we'll get to later stages of the roadmap later. That is a decision for employees and employers, and I would imagine as many people are having those conversations about some degree of flexibility in work arrangements, it's absolutely right that those conversations should happen.
Around 4 million people at least still on furlough. How many of them do you think will be unemployed come the end of the year?
Well, what we do know now is that furlough has worked in protecting millions of people's jobs over the past year. And if you look at the unemployment rate, for example, here in the UK, it is lower than most of our major competitors, whether that's America, Canada, France, Spain, Italy, and that's important to me because protecting people's jobs is my number one priority. And I believe that as we reopen the economy, we can get as many of those people back to work as possible. And
how many is that? How many is possible?
Well, as the economy reopens, we'll see. But I've always been clear, not every single job is going to be one that we can save, but that's why it's important that we provide new opportunities for people, whether it's through our apprenticeship bonuses, the Kickstart scheme, the Prime Minister's Lifetime Skills Guarantee. All of those provide fresh opportunity and hope for people, and that's what we will deliver on this year.
How are you going to pay for social care?
I think the government remains committed to supporting the social care system. And as we set out in our manifesto, we already are. An extra £1 billion a year has already been invested into the social care system.